In the early morning hours of Friday, October 13th, 1307, soldiers across France moved at once. Same night, every commandery, every stronghold. By sunrise, nearly 2,000 men had been dragged from their beds and thrown into prison. Not soldiers caught off guard on a battlefield. Monks, bankers, knights who had spent 2 centuries being called the shield of Christendom. In one coordinated strike, the most powerful military order in Europe was taken apart before most of its members understood what was happening. This is the real story of the Knights Templar, not the treasure map version. The actual one, which is somehow just as wild. It starts around 1118 in Jerusalem, a few decades after the First Crusade captured the city. Pilgrims were flooding in from across Europe, walking dangerous roads to reach the holy sites, and a lot of them weren't making it. A small group of knights decided to protect them. They called themselves the Poor Knights of Christ. At the start, that name wasn't ironic. They had almost nothing. That changed fast. European royalty, eager to be associated with holy warriors, started donating land, money, and property. Within decades, the Templars weren't just a fighting order. They were something closer to a multinational institution, with castles and churches scattered across the continent. And here's the part that surprises most people. The Templars basically invented an early form of international banking. A pilgrim could deposit money with the Templars in France, receive a letter of credit, and withdraw the same amount from a Templar house in Jerusalem, without hauling gold through bandit-infested roads the entire way. It made travel dramatically safer. It also made the Templars staggeringly wealthy, and eventually owed money by kings, including the King of France himself. For almost 2 centuries, this was the arrangement. The Templars fought in the Crusades, ran their financial network, and answered to no one but the Pope. But everything the order was built on depended on one thing: the Crusader presence in the Holy Land. In 1291, that ended. The city of Acre, the last major Crusader stronghold, fell. The Templars' entire founding purpose was gone. They were still enormously wealthy, still heavily armed. But now people were asking an uncomfortable question. What exactly are they still for? King Philip IV of France had his own answer, and it wasn't generous. He was buried in debt, partly to the Templars themselves, and had already gone after other wealthy groups to fill his treasury. The Templars, wealthy, independent, answering to Rome instead of him, were a problem he knew how to solve. So on that Friday in October 1307, Philip's men arrested Grandmaster Jacques de Molay, along with roughly 2,000 Templars across France, all in one night. The charges were about as bad as it got in the 14th century. Heresy, blasphemy, secret rituals. Most of it fabricated, extracted through torture, then walked back the moment the torture stopped, then extracted again. Here's the detail almost nobody brings up. It wasn't the Pope who accused the Templars of heresy. It was the king. Pope Clement V actually resisted for a while. But once the accusations were public, once the order's reputation was already ruined, the Pope caved and dissolved the order anyway, less because he believed the charges, and more because the damage was already done. The ending wasn't quick or merciful. Trials dragged on for years. Confessions were tortured out of men and denied the moment they weren't under the knife. In spring 1314, Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master, was burned at the stake in Paris, still denying the charges, reportedly cursing both the king and the Pope, both of whom died within the year. Now, about Friday the 13th. You've probably heard this exact night is where the unlucky day superstition comes from. It's a great story. It's also almost certainly not true. Historians find little evidence connecting Friday the 13th to bad luck in the centuries right after 1307. The superstition doesn't really show up in popular culture until a 1907 novel called appropriately Friday the 13th, popularized it. The Templars' arrest happening on that date is likely just a coincidence retroactively linked to a much later superstition, not its origin, which makes the real story better, not worse. You don't need a curse or a secret symbol to explain what happened to the Templars. You just need a king in debt, a wealthy order that had outlived its usefulness, and a government willing to manufacture whatever charges it needed to make the debt disappear. 2 centuries of power, protected by nothing but a pope's blessing and a reputation for holiness. It took one king, one knight, and one very convenient set of accusations to bring the entire thing down.